Welcome to the Industry Podcast, where we talk about the entertainment industry and all of its modern day aspects. This episode is about sports broadcast, where we talk to Babe Laufenberg. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
We're here with former NFL player for the Saints, Chargers, Cowboys, Redskins, and Chiefs, Babe Laufenberg. I call him Coach, so throughout this interview, I'll be calling him Coach. I want to start. Coach, you pretty much have been in the spotlight your whole life. You grew up in California. You were recruited by Stanford to play quarterback. You even were drafted to the MLB after high school. You still got cameras in front of you all the time now. I want to know, what's it like being in the spotlight this whole time, pretty much high school up until now?
Well, it's an interesting question. And I do remember in high school, when I first signed my letter of intent with Stanford, Emily Doyce, still remember her name. She was a student writer for the Stanford Daily. And she called and wanted to do a story on me about coming to Stanford. So this was in February or whenever the signing date was. And she said, do you go by Brandon, which is my real name, or Babe, which I've been called all my life? And I'm 17 years old, Connor. So I just said, oh gosh, whatever you want to write is fine. And she said, no, if you're gonna change your name and go by Brandon, now would be the time to do it. And I thought to myself for about 5 seconds, and I said, you know what, I've been Babe ever since I was a baby of the family. So I'll just stick with Babe.
Making the transition from the NFL to TV and radio, how did you make that transition? And when did you know that you had the passion and drive to do TV and radio after your professional NFL career?
What was interesting was I was a business major, graduated with a degree from the Kelley School of Business at Indiana University. So I always liked kind of the TV. When I'd see other people doing it, I'm like, hey, that looks like a pretty good job. But of course, I was on the other side of the camera. I was a guy in the locker room getting interviewed, not going in to do interviews. So kind of one thing led to another. I didn't really pursue it. The radio station that was carrying the Cowboy games, when I got released in training camp, they came to me and said, hey, do you want to do our pregame show? Yeah. And I said, oh, sure. I thought I'd still might get picked up by a team. You never know when the phone stops ringing. So I said, sure. But if, I get a call from a team, I'm gone. So I started in the pregame. The guy who was doing the halftime and the postgame show, he had back surgery about 2 weeks into it. So they said, hey, will you do the halftime postgame show, which I did. And then one thing led to another. I started doing a little TV work. And finally, the general manager at the CBS affiliate in Dallas, a gentleman by the name of Brian Jones, who I dearly love, he came to me and said, hey, we want you to be our main sports anchor. So I did that at CBS for 17 years here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And it's the old thing, Connor, life is what happens while you're planning your future. So I had got my real estate license. I had taken the LSATs, the law school admission test, thought I might become a lawyer. 2 brothers are attorneys. And all of a sudden they come, while I'm planning my future, they come and say, hey, how'd you like to do this? And I said, sure, I'll try it for a little while. And here I am, still in it.
You are the longest, after your 25th season, you are currently the longest color analysis broadcaster to ever do it. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. And I often say, Connor, if this job was easy, they would have found somebody good to do it, right?
No. Have you had an important, would you say, is there one significant counterpiece role model that you've had? I know Brad Sham, you do the games with him, and I've worked with him for a while, but is there one role model or anyone you can think of when talking about this industry?
Boy, I kind of try to learn from everyone. I really do. I was friends with Pat Summerall, and Pat Summerall was very kind to me, and obviously no more legendary announcer in any genre, really, than Pat Summerall. He was synonymous with the NFL, synonymous with the Masters and golf, U.S. Open tennis. Anyway, he was fantastic, and I observed. He never really said, hey, do this, but all you had to do was be a little sponge, and through osmosis, you could pick up a lot. And I worked on the Aikman Summerall show I had a part in that. It was a weekly show that we did for a couple of years here in Dallas, and I was getting my feet wet at that time. I did ask, why isn't Laufenberg included in this? Why isn't it the Aikman Summerall Laufenberg show? And that was shot down pretty quickly, as you might imagine. Brad Sham, working with Brad, 40 years doing it. I mean, he's been fantastic. Again, just getting an opportunity. I do watch other people work, and I think it's important, and you guys are all young journalists here coming up. I think it's important to watch how other people do it, watch how they interview people, watch how they handle themselves, but then be yourself. I'm no bigger fan of John Madden than Babe Laufenberg, right? But I know I'm not going to be Madden, but you can pick up things from him. Just don't try to be like him, because again, then you're losing your uniqueness. And the other part of that is, if I'm trying to be John Madden this week and Ted Koppel the next week and Pat Summerall the next week, then you kind of forget, gosh, who am I supposed to be this week? So if you're just yourself, I think it's the best plan of attack.
You have worked in other sports and obviously been in the industry for over 25 years. You've worked with a lot of interns and college graduates, such as ourselves, hopefully
Right.
soon. Would you have any advice you'd give to us right now? I know you already said use and take advantage and learn from everyone you talk to, but if there's anything else, we'd love to hear from you.
Well, it's interesting because I had an intern who then started working for us. His name was Cody Winstead, still is his name, and he was fantastic. And here's the thing that Cody did, and I hired him for other jobs. I actually helped get him a job with the NFL Network, which is who he works for today. Trying to get him a job with Sunday Night Football, and my buddy Fred Godelli, who's the producer for Sunday Night Football, and I've told Fred just how great this kid is. But anyway, he's no longer a kid, but he interned for us at CBS. Gosh, 20 years ago maybe. And if I would give him a job, and I said, for example, hey Cody, can you give me the last 3 quarterbacks who have led the NFL in touchdown passes? So he would come up, he'd give me the last 3. He'd give me who finished 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. He'd give me 10 years back. He'd give me, this was the first guy to lead the NFL in touchdown passes in his 2nd year since Johnny Unitas, or whatever the case was. So he didn't just come back and finish the project, so to speak. He expanded around it. And to that end, I played for Joe Gibbs in Washington, Hall of Fame coach. And he used to always say, hey, don't be the guy that's working on the assembly line and he's screwing on a bolt, but he doesn't know if he's making a car or a refrigerator, right? Or a television set. Don't just screw on the bolt. Understand what's going on with the guy next to you, to the right, to the left. That was in football, right? But I think it translates to everything you do. So when you do get an internship, when you do start out in the profession, don't just look at your narrow job and say, okay, I did what was asked of me. Try to expand a little bit and go outside and say, okay, well, what was the producer doing there? What's the director doing? What's going to make their job easier in terms of what I can do to help them? And so that would be my advice. Just learn the whole operation.
As always, thank you so much. Aliciana, Anthony, Ryan, do y'all have anything to add?
I do have one question. Do you see kind of similarities with how other sports do their broadcasting? My personal interest is like Formula One, mixed martial arts, the kind of unorthodox sports. I wouldn't call them but you kind of see similarities within the like production aspect among all these different sports, or is it different with how each sport does it?
I would say it is different how each sport does it, no question. For instance, if you're in golf, Pat Summerall was talking about how he, obviously sat in that tower on 18, wherever the course was. And of course, very synonymous almost with the Masters tournament. But so you've got your headset on. And in this ear, you've got to listen to your producer telling you where to go, who to go to, right? And in the other ear, and you've got to listen to the on-course announcer describing what's happening. So he said that was a little difficult. You don't really have that in football. I mean, they'll call you and tell you to go to break. Same with baseball. They just say, hey, replay coming, whatever the case is. But in golf, you had to keep all that going. The other part about golf, so much of golf is taped. So from the director's standpoint, calling the shots, and even the announcer, so much of that is on tape because 5 guys could be putting at once, right? Somebody's on 12, somebody's on 13, somebody's on 17, and they may all be putting at the same time. So they have to go to a lot of tape. Unlike basketball, football, baseball, obviously none of that's tape. You show a replay on tape, obviously, but the rest of it is truly live. I know car racing is interesting, auto racing, because you've got fixed cameras there on the turns, right? Now, Formula One's a little bit different, right? Because you're street racing there, but that's a little bit different. They just, if you ever watch a NASCAR race, they've got fixed cameras basically at each of the turn and on the straightaway in the backstretch. And that's kind of how they announce it. They go from spot to spot there. So it's all subtly different, the different sports in terms of coverage.
My question is, after working in multiple fields, what is something that you wish that your like fresh graduate from a university knew that you learned in the field?
Boy, that's a good question. I think the one thing that I became better at, and I'd like to think I was pretty good at it, and I'm still pretty good at it, but is interviewing people. And when I started out doing interviews, I wasn't uncomfortable doing them. I just didn't do a good job of formulating my questions. And I just learned, I watched, and I said, that wasn't very good. And the big thing when you're doing an interview is always how, why, what, when, where. Never ask a question that can be answered with a yes or no, right? Hey, did you think you played well tonight? Yes. No. Hey, coming into today, you had the bad ankle. How well did you think you'd be able to play tonight? That's the way to ask that question, right? So early on, I was just like, hey, good game. Yeah, it was. Yeah. So you learn to ask questions, interview. And the other thing I learned, honestly, was to shut up. Let that person keep speaking. And many times they'd be in the middle of a thought or something, and I just want to jump on to my next question. And I realized, that wasn't the way to go. So I would say interviewing. And the interesting thing is you can interview each other. You can sit there and interview Connor back and forth, take a look at it, and you'll see yourself. Yeah, I like this aspect of it. I didn't like this aspect of it. And Ted Koppel's a little bit before your time, but to me, he was one of the best interviewers on television. So I would watch him, and I would watch his interviews, and I would learn from him. And interestingly enough, his questions never went beyond about 10 seconds, right? I mean, he got to the point, but he asked a very concise but interesting question. And again, Ted Koppel was a guy where I said, okay, I want to, I'm not going to look like him, not going to sound like him, but I want to interview like him.
And growing up, how has the industry changed from you experiencing it to, growing up as a kid? Like what are the major differences that you didn't expect?
Well, I think we have to set the record straight here, Ryan. I have yet to grow up, but I've gotten older. There's a difference, right? Yeah, the industry, it's interesting. Again, I think the big thing, quite honestly, is the internet and the availability and access to not only printed information, but also video. I subscribe to something called NFL Game Pass. I don't know if you guys watch that or subscribe to it. But anyway, I can watch coaching tape of every team in the NFL, every game. I can go back, if I want to go back and see the coverage, how Philadelphia played Dallas 5 years ago, I can go to that game and watch coaches' film, which was never available to you before. You kind of hope to record it, right, on your VHS if the game was playing, and you would record the TV version. Now, I've got all that available to me. So I think that's the biggest change, is obviously the technology, which has enabled you to be more informed, again, both through video and the written word.
That's all the time we have. Be sure to tune in next week for a brand new episode.